Welcome to the Farmhouse. I'm Stephanie Spiker.
I'm Candace Worsbowski.
And today we will be talking with Heidi Secord, who is the first woman to serve as Pennsylvania's executive director of the USDA Farm Service Agency. And in addition to that, along with her husband, she currently owns and operates the Josie Porter Farm, which is a diversified vegetable operation in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. Heidi was also a past president of the Pennsylvania Farmers Union and has served on the National Farmers Union Board of Directors. And while that is already a really long list, it's not even everything ag-related that Heidi has been involved in, but we're going to let her go into more detail about that in a little bit. But first, Candace has a little treat for you.
I sure do. So right now on LancasterFarming.com, we have a story about a family-owned dairy farm in Mill Hall, Pennsylvania, which is opening their doors to the public this summer to not only diversify their revenue, but to also educate the public about ag and specifically their operation. The farm is Daughter Grows, and they also have this amazing 18-acre sunflower maze right now, which I think is really worth checking out if you're in that area or willing to drive. But the reason we're including them in Little Treats is because this story also focuses on Katie Daughter. She is a daughter of the family. Katie works on the farm, and she also participates in advocacy. She leads tours of the operation, and she also uses Facebook to share information about the farm and ag in general on a page called Agvocate with a K, which I think is very cute, K for Katie. In addition to that, she also works in cow health and breeding programs on the farm. She oversees some of the farm's technology that they use there. So we encourage you to go to LancasterFarming.com and read more about Katie and the Daughter operation. And we will have a link in the show notes to help you do that. And also, if you do go to that story and go to the bottom, there's also a link to Advocate, Katie's informational site. But now I can't wait to learn a little bit more about Heidi. As Steph mentioned, she has a very interesting, I think very cool story of how she made her way to ag. And I can't wait to hear more about it. Heidi, welcome to the Farmhouse. Thank you for taking time to speak with us today.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here with you both.
So did you always want to work in agriculture?
Interesting question. When I grew up in Connecticut, and my mom and dad had a really huge garden. So I was around gardening and agriculture growing up, but I really didn't know I wanted to be in agriculture until I spent time in West Africa. I was in the Peace Corps and working with women in agriculture there. And really understanding what subsistence agriculture looked like. So it was really through that experience that drove me into that space when I got back from Peace Corps, of just really wanting to do something that was meaningful and really just giving back in a different way to society. So that's really my main impetus for getting into agriculture, was my experience in a developing country.
I love that. We've heard so many stories about people's journeys to agriculture, and believe me, you are far from the only one who didn't think that they would be in agriculture as they were growing up, but there's many paths.
Mm-hmm. There is, and it's been an interesting journey. Certainly when I went to college at the University of Rhode Island and got my degree in business management, it was not in my trajectory that I was going to get into actually running my own business. And running an agricultural operation. So
nice. So you and I actually spoke about 2 years ago in an interview for Lancaster Farming. And in that interview, you said that being the first woman to serve as Pennsylvania's executive director of the Farm Service Agency, you said it's awesome, but you didn't want it to define your role. Instead, you said you wanted people to celebrate the work you're doing with the FSA. So now, 2 years later, can you tell me about some of that work that you've been doing?
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I have to say, we've gotten a lot done. And I say we, because it's not just about without the team, without the village of people that are working alongside me in state office and in our county offices, we wouldn't have been able to accomplish the things that we have accomplished. Really excited in our externally for us, our priorities have really been around making sure that all sectors of agriculture have a place at the table. We've really been doing a lot of strengthening the relationships between us and a farm service agency and farmers out in the field. I've been getting out with our county offices and getting out and meeting farmers, hearing about their stories, how our programs are working for them, how they might not be working, and figuring out ways and bringing that to the top and at the national level to really address some of those issues that farmers have been having. I'm actually really excited too, because some of those concerns that farmers were bringing to the table are being heard. And just this week, Farm Service Agency announced a new program, a new farm loan program delivery rule that has changed farm loans for FSA. I mean, this is the first time it's changed in 40 years.
Wow.
And it's because of that information that we're getting from the field, from producers, from our employees about what's working and what's not working. All changes in the new rule will be effective on September 25th.
Nice.
So we're just excited about that.
Very
Right
cool.
around the corner.
Yeah, it is. So it's all about creating accessible programs and resources and information, being transparent about the work that we're doing, who we are, and another great thing that I want to highlight, we actually have a physical office in Philadelphia. We have urban county committees in Philadelphia, as well as a physical office for our producers in urban areas, peri-urban areas, suburban areas. So we're continuing to provide services in our rural areas and welcoming our urban producers to the table as well. And along that vein, we are right now working on creating a Pittsburgh Urban Ag Office. Soon we'll be announcing here our county executive director that will be coming on in Pittsburgh as well for Allegheny County. So there's a lot of exciting things happening, a lot of program emphasis around new and beginning farmers. We also just hired a new beginning farmer, rancher, veteran coordinator here in Pennsylvania. We're the first in the country to hire somebody full-time based in state office. As you know, Secretary Redding often talks about the fact that Pennsylvania is #1 in the country for farmers under the age of 35. We took that to heart, and we're putting our efforts into making sure that we're supporting those new beginning farmers. Whether
That's
it's a rural community, whether it's an urban community, wherever those farmers and producers are, we're making sure that they have access to information, programs, and that they're being supported in the best way that we can.
Wow,
that's great.
Is all very exciting, and also just like a lot of stuff for sure. And
yeah,
I know obviously this job is a big part of your life, but you also do have a farm with your husband. Yes. So can you tell us a little bit about your farm, the Josie Porter Farm?
Absolutely. Josie Porter Farm, we're based here in Monroe County, just close to the Delaware River and the border of New Jersey. It's a beautiful area. We live in Cherry Valley, which is a very bucolic valley, just a little south of Strasburg. So it feels rural. We're close to a larger city, so it's nice to be able to market our products there, as well as we're close to the Lehigh Valley. So we are a diversified vegetable operation. My husband and I run a community supported agriculture operation. we started with 45 members. We've gotten up to 200, and we've been in operation
Wow.
for 17 years.
Jeez.
We have a farm stand on site. Our specialty crop is garlic. And so we also go to a couple of garlic festivals in the fall to supplement our income during that fall period.
Okay.
We get a lot of cash flow up front.
Nice.
And then, it's nice to have those garlic festivals in the fall to kind of bring in that additional income.
I need to get to one of those garlic
Yeah,
festivals. I
really.
love garlic.
Easton, Pennsylvania.
To get
All
myself out
right.
there.
Yes.
So, I believe you mentioned on the USDA website that your farm, it's actually within the Cherry Valley National Wildlife Refuge. So,
Mhm.
how does being in that location affect the way your operation runs? Like, do you have to do anything special to protect the local wildlife?
So the National Wildlife Refuge boundary creates an opportunity for landowners to have access to being able to um, sell their property to the wildlife refuge.
Mm-hmm.
So the property that I'm on, and let me tell you about the property because it's really special.
Please do,
And
yeah.
it's special because of the foresight and vision of our township. So Stroud Township, one of the best townships, I think, in the state. But Monroe County, let me back up a little bit. Monroe County voted on open space initiative, and it was it was a referendum, and it was on the ballot, and it was a referendum for an earned income tax that would be put into a fund for saving open space, for buying open space lands. And so Stroud Township had the initiative to purchase the property that was in the valley to save it in perpetuity as open space land. So once they purchased it was sitting there. And really, uh, at that time, I had been working for other producers, learning, being mentored, learning about how to run a business. And I was looking for land. And I ended up finding this property and spending a little time on it and really feeling like this was the next place I really wanted to be. And so I went to the township and proposed to them to start up this community supported farm. And they loved the idea, but without their vision and their impetus for making sure that that land was protected, that wouldn't have happened. And so, I'm really grateful to Stroud Township for creating that space for farming and agriculture to happen, and also for being open to the idea of a community farm on the property.
Wow. Yeah, that is very cool. And that
Yeah.
actually kind of leads perfectly into my next question, which, you talk about community and you call your farm stand like a community led food hub and you partner with other local farms to provide more
Mhm.
products. So, why do you feel a local food community is so important?
You know, I go to a lot of conferences. I spend a lot of time with farmers. I spend a lot of time with uh, policy makers. And one thing that always sticks out in my mind is it's really hard. It's really hard to make a living um, growing solely just a few crops for us, for the
Hmm.
size and the scale that we're at. And it really takes a lot of people to make and to be able to bring in enough to be able to support um our family. And so I think together, like as a community of growers, as a and I talk a lot about cooperatives, but I mean in this case it's more we work with producers to contract grow for us to bring in products to our farm stand. So it's benefiting them, it benefits us, it benefits the community. It's that real triple win that we're all looking for. And I just think it's really the that for small scale producers, it's really important for us to be working together to be able to scale up um, what we are able to sell
Mhm.
and the income that we're bringing in.
So we're going to pivot a little,
Yeah. Okay.
talk about
Good.
your journey to ag.
Okay.
So you are a sister on the planet through Oxfam, and for
Yes.
anyone listening who is not familiar with Oxfam, it's a global organization. They are helping to fight the fight against global poverty. They do a lot of policy research and advocacy. Could you tell us what it means to be a sister on the planet and about the kind of work that the Sisters on the Planet are doing for agriculture and beyond?
Yeah, interesting. I got involved in that through my work in Farmers Union. My friend Maggie Robertson and I'll give a shout out to her.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, she's another amazing woman in agriculture. Yeah, so we were introduced to Oxfam and the work they're doing, and with my background in uh, my work in Mali, West Africa, which is where I was in Peace Corps, and the
Oh, we're
work I
gonna
did,
get to that. Don't worry.
Yeah.
and the work I did in that space, I really felt like I really needed to bring uh, that 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 um, that work, that embodiment of work there, and trying to connect, with women here in Pennsylvania, um, and really thinking about sustainability in the sense of uh, how we support each other. When I was there, it was so amazing the spirit of women and the
Mhm.
spirit of working together in those community spaces where they felt safe and um, yeah, there was just a lot of joy. And so just wanting to bring that back and make sure that as women in agriculture that we're bringing that joy back into our lives as we run our businesses, as we're out in the fields and we're working and we're sweating and spending
Mhm.
time together. Um, and so I just see that I say that the most important thing in my work as a sister on the planet with Oxfam is telling my story,
Mhm.
telling our stories, and making sure that people are connected to the work that we do uh, and the work that we have done, and continuing to tell stories about the women in our lives, our mentors, the women that I talk often about Josie Porter. And a lot of people say, "Well, who is Josie Porter?" Well, we named it that because we wanted to be able to continue to honor her and the work that she did in the biodynamic movement. And
Mhm.
so it's the land that Josie Porter Farm was her land that she grew up on, and the land where she practiced her biodynamic agriculture, where she made the preparations. She was really a woman ahead of her times, and so those are the kinds of stories that we need to keep telling. Is the work that all the women in our past and continue to do today. It's just so important.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we agree with that sentiment here at the
Yes.
farmhouse
100%.
Yes.
because we are all about telling the stories of women in ag. So we've been kind of like dancing around it. Tell us about your time in the Peace Corps. What motivated you to join, and what did you take away from your experience?
Thank you for asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was in college and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do next in life. And I met some returned Peace Corps volunteers at my university. And we were talking about their experiences to me. And I was like, wow, I really want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my life at that point. Anyway, and I know that a lot of European countries, New Zealand, Australia, they usually take a break between university and
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
The
getting
gap year.
going into a
Yeah.
year of work. So uh, yeah, I took my gap years in the Peace Corps in Mali, West Africa, and It was such an incredible experience. I grew up real fast. I believe that all Americans should leave this country and see how the majority of the world lives. I think having that perspective would make people very appreciative of the things that we have here in the U.S., the rights we have, the life we have, and the joy. It's just it's just so amazing. People that um, really don't have a lot that would give their shirt off their back to you.
Yeah.
That lesson in life was huge. I really felt like they gave me a lot more than I was able to provide as a Peace Corps volunteer. But that's why I went back. I did a short consulting job afterwards, and after I had been farming for a couple of years, and so I felt like I was able to give back again in a different way at that time. But yeah, so I spent 2 years in Mali, West Africa, and then I did a short um, another short time, 6 months in Lesotho in Southern Africa. So
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time
Yeah, okay, so it's short
there.
term. 6 months.
6 months.
Is
Short.
not a short amount of time to be, I think, away
But
from home.
I guess it's
Yeah,
short in terms of because Peace Corps is typically 2 years, I
Yeah,
believe,
it is.
right?
true.
It
So
is.
Yeah,
I
it's all
was 3 months of training in country where you get cultural, language, and technical training before you
mhm.
go out into the field. And then you
hmm
spend 2 years at your site. I was in the bush. I was in a small village of maybe 300 people. My nearest Peace Corps volunteer to me was about 3 kilometers away.
Okay.
We had a small team there of other Peace Corps volunteers. We didn't see each other too often, but we did work on a few projects together, well projects, sanitation projects. But my work was focused on working with women's cooperatives in a women's garden. So that was really yeah. And we did soap making for income generating projects, connecting communities of other women that were doing unique things. And so, yeah, it was really fascinating work and then just a fascinating culture as well. So, by the time I left, I was able to speak Bambara, the language
That's
that they speak
awesome.
there,
Yeah.
pretty fluently. And I also speak French. So,
Wow. That really, I mean, it sounds like an incredible experience for sure, and definitely something that you carry with you then throughout your life. And
hmm
we talked a little bit about your Peace Corps service when we interviewed a few years ago, and in that interview, you mentioned how you really felt like a culture shock when you actually returned back home to the U.S. and that basically agriculture is just the space that you felt really drawn to. So, for you, what about working in agriculture drew you in after you spent that time in Mali?
yeah, honestly, it was just, it felt like any other career. It felt like the most meaningful place for me to be. When I think about subsistence agriculture and in a developing country, and like if I don't have a harvest, like I don't eat that year. Like I'm in a tight spot, right? And so it felt like coming here and growing good food for my community was a place that was a place that just meant a lot, not just to me, but to my community. And it is just everything else kind of felt a little shallow.
Yeah,
Mm.
that makes sense.
So, and I really didn't understand at that time, I didn't really understand the full complexity of all the different spaces that I could be in agriculture. But having that base, having the base of 30 years of agriculture behind me, and then being in policy roles and positions like this, I think it's really important, and that's something that certainly came out in my former role in as the state president for Pennsylvania Farmers Union, is how can you talk about policy if you haven't done it yourself, if you haven't done the
Yeah.
work yourself?
Yeah. Well, that kind of transitions nicely into my next question, which is, what are some ways farmers can get involved in politics, and why should they?
Cultural policy, as is true for Farmers Union and for Farm Bureau, policy is driven by farmers. So if there are changes that people want to see, then it needs to come from that space, that local uh, agricultural space. And that's the beauty of our farm policy organizations, is that they're listening to the producers. It's coming up to the state level. State level then adopts, and then it goes into national level. And then that national, the Farm Bureau and Farmers Union and other ag policy organizations are then using that to really form the national policy. And so, I mean, that is the American way.
Yeah.
It is grassroots based policy. Why should farmers care? Because farmers' voices are important in
They
making
are.
sure that the policy is for them. That's what that's what the United States is based on. It's by them and for them. And so why should we care? Well, we should care because we're Americans, we're taxpayers, and every voice is important. Whether you're in a rural area, whether you're in an urban environment, we're all farmers, we're all producers, we're all paying our taxes. And so, policy should be there for all producers.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you've talked a lot about, you just said every voice is important, and you talked about the importance of farmers telling their stories. But, in order to tell your story, you have to have, as you've mentioned, a seat at the table. So, what is FSA doing, or what are some of these organizations doing to make sure that farmers who want a seat at that table are able to have one?
So USDA, I mean, I think under this administration, USDA has done an incredible job with making sure that all voices are at the table, including the Equity Commission, which Secretary Redding sits on. We just had an event in Philadelphia with the Equity Commission. And so that's one space where I think USDA is doing a great job. And then also we have a lot of opportunities. For me personally, I'm out in the field. I'm out there talking with farmers. And so those stories, and if there's producers out there that haven't had a conversation with me, that would like to have a conversation with me, please invite me out to your farm, invite me out to meet with your county committee and your county office. We want to hear your stories. If something's not working for you, or something is, I'm looking for success stories too. Like if you're really excited about a program that FSA has, and the great job that we're doing, I also want to hear that. Those are the stories we need to get out as well. But also, there's lots of opportunities to make sure that your voice is heard. I know Glenn Thompson, Congressman Thompson, is having his Farm Bill listening session coming up here next week, next Monday. Ag Progress Days is a great place to come and see a lot of people there and have your voice heard there as well. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like it's amazing the amount of transparency and openness that USDA has created during this administration.
It's great for us to see and hear about all these opportunities for farmers. And I hopefully our farmer listeners are maybe picking up on some of the things they could do if they want to share their voice more and get heard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would like to hope that they do feel emboldened, empowered, whatnot, to share their stories.
Yeah.
Right. So you're obviously a very busy person. You've got USDA, you've got your farm, you're involved in multiple organizations. How do you balance that time and how do you hopefully find time to take time for yourself?
Yeah, I feel like I've learned how to do that better as I've gotten older.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a learned skill for sure.
It is. When I was younger, I just always said yes to everything
Mm-hmm.
because, in the beginning, as a young woman, I just wanted to get the experience. I wanted to meet as many people as I could, and learn from
Mm-hmm.
all these different mentors and people in my life that have supported me along the way. I, you
Yeah.
know, for sure, feel a kingship with Deputy Secretary Cheryl Cook,
Mm-hmm.
who's been a huge mentor for me in my life, from her work at USDA and into PDA. Uh, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I feel like I try to take time for myself, but it's hard during the season, of course.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
My husband and I tend to have to schedule our vacations in usually because we know if we don't, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh gosh, that's hard because I I haven't been really great at it.
I think it's okay to admit that. I struggle with it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I know there I've had a pretty busy week and at one point yesterday I actually had like a half hour where I
Uh-huh.
didn't really have anything I had to do and I found
Hmm.
myself sitting there saying, but I could be doing something. There are still things on the list.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like, no, no, take this half hour and just take
Yeah.
a breather. Like you need this. So I
Yeah.
get it. Sometimes it's hard to resist the urge to keep going, to keep checking things off. But yeah.
It is, I feel that's true. I keep saying, we should, put a couch in my office so that I can take a 15-minute nap,
There you
hour
go.
nap or
Yes,
something. But
power naps.
uh I try to take the time I need for myself,
Good.
Good.
and more so than I did when I was younger.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. So that actually brings us to our final question, which is what does being a woman in ag mean to you?
Yeah, there's again, I think there's such a great community of women producers in the state. I'm one of the founding members of the Pennsylvania Women in Agriculture Network. And it was really set up because there was an opportunity for women to come together and talk about farming, how to fix your tractor,
Yeah.
how to repair your tractor on your own, and to have a community of women that you can go to and not feel like here I am. I'm, like asking
Hmm.
questions about how to fix my tractor. I want to ask another woman that question,
Yeah.
right?
I
Not to
understand
say that I
completely.
don't have men in my life that have been really instrumental in making sure that I'm successful in what I'm doing, because there are a lot of great men out there.
Hmm.
And so, what it means to be a woman, though, is like I just feel like women bring so many different things to agriculture, that um, and I celebrate that and I honor all the women who are doing the work, who are out there doing the work. I mean, in so many ways. I mean, I think probably back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s when people were coming into FSA uh, for a loan or for participating in our programs, women weren't always considered the farmer,
Yeah.
Mm.
and yet they were doing the work too. They were there doing the accounting, the books, you know the tractor work, or
Yeah.
on the back, throwing the hay up, and yet we weren't always considered as the farmer,
Yeah.
Right.
and yet we've been in this space. Like we've always been in this space. And so I just really want to celebrate all the women who have been out there, have been doing the work, and you know, it takes teams, it takes a couple, it takes a lot of people to make a farm work and succeed. So celebrating that. I just wanted to say also, you know, you asked me the question about like, what have we done? What has Farm Service Agency done in the state? And one thing I wanted to highlight was the work we've been doing internally. We have such amazing employees at Farm Service Agency. Many of our employees are farmers themselves, and you know, have a career at USDA to supplement, you know, their income on their farm. And in a lot of ways, you know, COVID really shifted and changed a lot of things for USDA employees, and a lot of those training opportunities that had been in place had gone by the wayside. So one of the things that we've done a lot of for our employees at Farm Service Agency is we're giving them different types of training that they haven't had before. We're doing these fostering first timers for new employees. We're encouraging internships and apprenticeships. We had 9 apprentices this year.
Oh, wow.
Interns this year alone. Like, you know, we haven't utilized the program, you know, programs that have been there and available to us. And we're trying to create opportunities for younger generations, that new generation, to come up and to become public servants. And so, you know, we're taking advantage of 1890 Scholars Program, bringing on people from those historically Black colleges and universities, and we're putting in mentoring programs, and USDA has also done a great job too of making sure there's opportunities for young people to stay in public service to USDA through debt forgiveness programs, and doing new like ways of hiring people, of bringing direct hires on. So like if somebody interns for USDA through our Pathways internship program, after they go through the program, we can actually direct hire them at whether it's Farm Service Agency, Natural Resource Conservation Service, Rural Development, and other agencies within USDA. So there's a lot of opportunities for young people to come and participate and work for farm, come in and participate and work with Farm Service Agency and other USDA agencies. There's other ways to participate in agriculture, and one of those is working for the government. So I just wanted to give that pitch because I think it's, you know, we try to get people in young, because there's a lot of benefits to the work we do, and not just like, you know, pushing paper. You know, we're out there, we're doing the work with producers, and I think that's just really important to get a message out about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many ways that I don't think people realize, especially young people, that you can get into agriculture without necessarily being a farmer. So it's exciting that you guys have those programs to hopefully, you know, get a few more people getting involved in the industry. That's awesome.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting because a lot of the young people we get come from farms. Like their parents have a farm, so they have that ag background. So, and a lot of them are getting degrees in agriculture. So that's important too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for a young professional to have that background is really key to making sure that we're providing the services that our producers need in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
I've listened to every single of your podcasts.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
We get so excited when people say they listen.
One, I wanted to feel prepared for the conversation with you, but I love the idea of these podcasts, and I'm inspired by all the women that you've been interviewing, and thank you so much for the work you're doing in this space.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, it's been
awesome for us.
A really fun journey, and getting to talk to so many different women out there that are doing really cool things has been a lot of fun for us.
Well, Well,
So,
it's fun. It's fun hearing them and hearing their stories and meeting them through your
Yeah.
podcast. So
yeah.
thank you.
That was amazing talking to Heidi. I loved hearing all about what she's doing with USDA, but I also really loved hearing about her journey to agriculture, specifically her time in the Peace Corps.
Yeah, I feel like that is such a kind of unique path to take to end up in ag. But while it is so unique, because not that many people do Peace Corps, and not that many people end up coming home and going into ag, but for me, that story actually sounds very familiar because it's super similar to my sister Katie. She served in Senegal in West Africa in the Peace Corps, and she did a lot with the women in her community and gardening and a lot of other things. And now she actually is a farm manager on a produce farm, and she's been managing different farms the past, many years. I don't even know, since she's been home. And so it's crazy to me, the little similarities in the stories. And maybe one day we'll finally get Katie here on the farmhouse and she can tell her own story in much better detail than I can.
Yeah, I don't even know if like little similarities covers it. It's a lot of similarities.
It is a lot of
really.
similarities, yeah. It was very cool to hear Heidi's story and to feel that connection between her and my sister.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed at the end there when Heidi started talking about the fact that women have always been in agriculture. She said, we've always been there, right? And it's only somewhat, it seems recently, that women are taking that title of farmer for themselves. And we have talked about this several times now about the delineation between farm wife and farmer. And you can choose to call yourself whatever you feel comfortable with. But it is interesting, like Heidi said, we've always been there. And whether it's, managing the finances or, like she said, behind the tractor with the hay.
Slinging the hay bales.
Right. Like, you're still doing the work. And I would argue that even if you are just, cooking for the people who are working on the farm, that is still farm work because you are fueling the hands that are doing the work, and that is equally as important. So I like that she made that point. It's just kind of an interesting theme that's kind of come up in the studio here.
It's definitely been a thread that's kind of connected a lot of different episodes, which is, it's cool as we get further and further into doing this podcast to hear some of the kind of recurring things that come up with women in ag, and it, I think, makes me realize a little bit how connected this community really is.
Yeah, it is an awesome thing to behold. I think that wraps it up for us. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And if you really like this episode, please consider leaving us a review.
If you have any questions or want to share any thoughts about this episode, you can email us at farmhouse@lancasterfarming.com.
You can also find us on social media at Lancaster Farming on most platforms.
Thank you so much again for listening and visiting us at the farmhouse today. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Candace.
And we will talk to you later.
Bye.
This episode of The Farmhouse is copyright 2024 by Lancaster Farming newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family.
It was written by Stephanie Spiker and Candace Wierzbowski. It was produced by Eric Herlock and Matt Lee. The music you've heard throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.